The jury system is a cornerstone of our judicial procedure, but for the Japanese, it's a piece of foreign exoticism. That may or may not be connected with the fact that Japan has one of the highest conviction rates in the world, 99.9%. But now Japan is introducing juries. And for More 4 News, Georgia Hanias reports on a change as much cultural as it is legal.
Order and harmony, self-discipline and public constraint, the hallmarks of Japanese society. With one of the highest urban population densities in the world, it is reassuring that displays of antisocial behavior here are few and far between. Japan's crime rate is pretty low, about a fifth of that of Britain. That's how the Japanese government wants to keep it. Here you are constantly reminded of what is and is not allowed, and you are left in no doubt what happens if you choose to ignore the signs. Beyond the public order lies a harsh world for those accused of breaking their social contract. Japan's prisons are notoriously tough places. You're forbidden to look other prisoners in the eyes. You can be kept for years in solitary confinement, and you are granted few, if any, privileges. For years, the way in which the legal system has operated has been unchallenged, but there is increasing pressure to assess how fair the law really is. It's what's happening behind these prison walls that is at the center of a growing debate here in Japan about the future of its judicial system, with coerced confessions, lengthy interrogation with no access to lawyers, and harsh sentencing at the heart of it all. The prisons certainly have their undesirables. Many bear the tattoo marks of the Yakuza, Japan's mafia. But last month, the United Nations delivered a damning report on the whole system. They criticized the lack of an independent judiciary, the extremely low acquittal rate, and widespread human rights abuses. The figures speak for themselves. Japan's judges hear about 1 million cases each year. The number of those acquitted? Less than 50. Inevitably, such a system does not favor those who are wrongly convicted.
The Japanese court case system is like a conveyor belt, where you're guilty until proven innocent. It's a system where the police, the judiciary and the judges are all on the same path to convict. That's why there's a 99.86% conviction rate here.
Yatabi's nightmare began on the Tokyo Underground. In 2002, he was falsely identified as having groped a young student on her way to school. He protested his innocence, but the police forced him to make a false confession. He was convicted and served 3 months in jail. Finally, his case was overturned by a higher court, and he was exonerated. It's a story remarkable for the fact it could have happened to any Tokyo male, and it was that sentiment that inspired the film, I Just Didn't Do It.
私は混雑する通勤電車内で女子中学生のお尻を触り袖をつかまれました。
何言ってるんですか。
ほんの出来心だったとはいえ大変申し訳ないことをしたと思っております。これから正直にお話申し上げます。
ちょっと待ってください。誰もそんなこと言ってないじゃないですか。
The film centers on the fact that Japanese judges' decisions are almost entirely based on the prosecution's evidence, evidence that is often gathered using unchecked powers of investigation. It highlights the law that allows suspects to be held for 23 days without access to a lawyer before being charged, and prosecutors almost always succeed in extracting a confession of guilt.
あんた、俺はやってない。
尋ねられたことだけにお答えください。
The film was hugely popular in Japan, but the director isn't a fan of Hollywood endings.
My film is not a happy ending court drama. It's a film about court procedure. In other dramas, bad people get sent down, the innocent are set free. But this is reality. The public's reaction has reflected this. They didn't know how hard it was to prove one's innocence, and they've become more suspicious about how the police investigate and about how being in a detention centre might involve torture.
the Japanese government reacted with a film of their own to promote reforms that are slated for 2008. Criminal cases are currently tried by a panel of judges, but reforms are being pushed through that will add private citizens to the mix. The end result would be a jury made up of 3 judges and 6 lay people who will decide not only on the verdict, but also the sentence. However, the film is no blockbuster, and it and the reform proposals it promotes have not won over the critics. Yauichi Kaido is one of the most successful defense lawyers in Tokyo. His record is almost unparalleled. He has won 1 case.
There are many cases where the police have lied, even though the suspect was innocent. For the courts to prove this, they have had 5 separate court cases where the police inspectors have had to appear in court to be cross-examined. If ordinary people are to become judges, the length alone of the trial would prohibit many jurors from finding out the truth. So in this new system, there's a possibility the number of wrongly convicted could actually increase.
It is clear the reforms will not be implemented easily. Other problems include an acute shortage of lawyers, and surveys have shown over 70% of Japanese don't want to take part in the jury trials anyway. But more worryingly is the apparent lack of self-criticism from the government. They publicly refuse to acknowledge the current system as flawed, despite greenlighting the reforms. When I met the Justice Ministry spokesperson to find out why the ministry decided to reform something if there weren't any problems with it, her answer was less than transparent.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. It's too sensitive. I'm sorry.
The future of Japan's judicial system remains uncertain. Many critics believe that the proposed changes will do nothing to safeguard the human rights of the accused. In order to secure a more effective and democratic process, pressure must come not only from here, the Supreme Court, but also from the people of Japan. Until the planned reforms are fully implemented, Japan will have to carry on living with a system that is less than fair. The problem is that the country's very modern youth seem more interested in the latest fashions than challenging the past. Unless, of course, they are accused of breaking the law.
Georgia Hanias reporting. Before we go, some late news. Death sentences on 6 foreign medics convicted of infecting Libyan children with HIV have been commuted to life in prison, a Libyan official has said. The US has repeated its demand for their immediate release. That's it from us tonight, but our website goes on all night at the usual address. Join us again tomorrow at 8 on War 4. Good night.